Welcome to the Salish Sea Fellowship Sunday afternoon service. Our speaker today is Joseph Bednarik. His sermon title is Forgive and Forget. We hope you enjoy this recording of our service, and we hope to see you in person some Sunday afternoon. Thanks for listening.
Paul Hinton, our newest board member, will now do our announcements.
So I hate to open this with a complaint, but either I'm shrinking or the podiums are getting taller. I don't know which it is. Our offering today is for Olympic Angels, and I'd like to ask Tasha Fitzgerald to come forward and talk about that for a moment, please.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Tasha Fitzgerald, and I am here on behalf of Olympic Angels. Of course, that's going to happen the minute I get up here, the luck. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, we started here in Jefferson County a little over 6 years ago, and we have since expanded into the Clallam County area, and in the future hope to reach the very west side of our North Olympic Peninsula. We focus on youth experiencing foster care and our families experiencing foster care. We have 2 programs that we offer. And in those programs, what we do is bring people like you all together to help support our community. Whether that means dropping off a meal, taking a child down the street to the park, while a family member maybe gets that shower, that long-awaited shower they've been hoping for. And then when we do that, we alleviate a caregiver's load, because the minute someone enters care, they have a certain amount of hours, 72 hours, to make sure that this child is enrolled in school, to get them set up with a doctor, a dentist, a therapist, and so on and so on. And when we have people in our community who can come together and say, hey, I can take this child on that ride. I want to connect with this child. I can also help you create placement stability. And the importance of placement stability is that that actually helps our youth gain confidence as well as connection. When a youth doesn't change homes, they're completely better off. Did you know that a youth changes 7 times in 2 years on average? And if you can imagine that, every time a change occurs, there's an academic delay of about 6 months. That's significant. So, through this connection, through this placement stability, we can actually change the outcomes for our youth. I'm going to get really bleak for just a minute, just like the leading with a complaint, if you will, but bear with me. Our youth in care experience PTSD at 2 times the rate as our combat veterans. Our youth in care end up on the streets at about 50%. 50% of them end up on the streets by the age of 26. That's significant. When you think of things that you see in the community, mental illness, people experiencing homelessness, an overall excess of people not in a thriving environment or in wellness. We have the power to be the intervention of that. And we do that through connecting our community members into these spaces, bringing us together to help change those outcomes. And so I'll be available afterwards to talk more about that in detail if you are interested in being at boots on the ground, working with our families. Maybe it is dropping off a meal. Maybe it is helping a family take a child somewhere. It's all creative, and something I always say is that every single person has a role to play with Olympic Angels. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Now, Kate Manson has an announcement she'd like to make. Kate?
Good afternoon. Almost. Just wanted to check in, give you an update on behalf of community engagement. Wanted to share that so far this year, our coffee hour cash contributions to CUMC, our hosts, have been totaling just over $50 each service. And as you know, this money helps support the Methodists' free weekly soup kitchen and their general store. It buys things like to-go containers, new underwear and socks to supplement the donated clothing, and canned and packaged food. Our fellowship cooks soup and supplies kitchen assistance on the third week of the month. And Kendra and I, and all of us, I'm sure, want to thank the folks that have provided soup so far this year, Scotty Scott and Susan Kriegel and Terry Copeland. And I also want to thank the people that are lined up to help in the coming 3 months. And finally, just an update on what's needed. The biggest needs right now are tents, sleeping bags, backpacks, pillows, towels, blankets. A lot of folks are living in their vehicles or small locations or unsheltered. And all of those things, they certainly don't need to be brand new, but they do need to be clean and not stained or ripped, something you would use yourself. And one other thing that they'd be interested in having is scrap wax, like partially used candles or paraffin that can be made into fire starters. And any items like that can be dropped off on Saturdays when the store is open from 10 to 12:30, or at one of these services, or you can give them to Kendra or myself and we'll make sure that they arrive where they need to be. So thank you all for your practical generosity.
Thank you, Kate. Next week, March 8th, is our regular potluck. Dinner at 5 p.m., doors open at 4:30 to allow for more socializing. For this community potluck, as is our recent practice after the meal, we will be showing a short video in hopes of uplifting our spirits in these troubled times, and that's double underline today, I think. In an unusual sermon by Todd Eckloff, he speaks in the voice of the author of a book by political scientist and futurist George Friedman, The Storm Before the Calm, America's Discord, the Coming Crisis of the 2020s, and the Triumph Beyond. Our next service will be Sunday, March 15th at 4 p.m. Yes, we are switching back to our regular time of 4 p.m. since we will spring ahead this coming weekend. Our speaker will be Madeline McNeil on the future of human creativity. With the unprecedented advancement of AI and its influence on society, including the arts, we are challenged to ask deeper questions about the value of human creativity and what the future holds. Your board of directors is considering our fourth Sunday game and snacks day, as it has not been well attended. If you have any thoughts or ideas about a community event which we might all enjoy, please let us know. If you have not submitted your pledge toward the financial health of the Salish Sea Fellowship, please do so. We are still significantly short of our goal for this year. You can give your pledge to Judy King, and if you need a form, we have those in the back. Lastly, please don't forget about the coffee table jar for contributions to help CUMC's store and outreach. Thank you very much. Kathleen.
Seems simple when you put it that way, but I know that it's gonna be hard. You know, I've never been good at breaking a heart. Pretty certain you will never find out that it's tearing me up inside. And I imagine you see my deceit when I look in your eyes. It said, the truth will set you free. I'm so afraid that's what you'll do to me. So I just say, let it be. my coffee and I read your blog, searching for some kind of clue. Do you live to tell me what I should do? I'm no fan of gratuitous truth, but withholding this truth is a lie. If you hear it from somebody else, we will never survive. I've heard it said, the truth will set you free. I'm so afraid that's what you'll do to me. So I just let it be. Don't know if this is about saving me or saving you, but my redemption depends on the path I choose. Seems simple when you put it that way, but I know that it's gonna be hard. No, I've never been good at breaking a heart. Need to believe you'll forgive and forget, and that everything's gonna be fine. But I'm afraid the heart that is broken is gonna be mine. I've heard it said, the truth will set you free. I'm so afraid that's what you'll do to me. I just let it be.
Thank you, Pat. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Salish Sea Fellowship. We are a religious community with open hearts and open minds. We embrace the traditional principles of Unitarianism and Universalism. Welcome. My name's Kathleen Crossan. I'm the pulpit assistant today. Our speaker is Joseph Bednarik, who is well known to most of you, and his sermon is entitled Forgive and Forget. If you've not already done so, I ask you to turn your phones to ringer or whatever, the silent mode, so as not to disturb the time we have set aside together. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone visiting us for the first time, if you would stand or raise your hand so we know who you are, and Karen Wamstead will come to you with a microphone so you can briefly introduce yourself to us. Any visitors? Okay. Well, welcome to all of you. And now I invite us to settle in and quiet our minds. We will begin our sacred time together by ringing our chime. We will now light the chalice with these words. In times of light and times of darkness, may the small flame kindle what is good in us and in the world.
So you can please rise for our opening song, Meditation on Breathing. Most of you know this. There's a drone part for those who are non-singers. And there's the melody part for most people, and then there's a desk hand that comes in at the end. So we'll start out with the drone. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
We make time each week to share our joys and sorrows with one another. Karen will lead us in this portion of the service.
Standing here by the flame that centers us, what can one say about what's going on in the world? There is so much that we already know about. People suffering Gaza, people suffering Ukraine, people suffering in Iran, people uncertain everywhere. It gives us pause. What to do? We don't know what to do. But let's look at ourselves. Let's bring it down to maybe a personal level where we can make a difference. And if we only know what's going on with us, now would be the time to get in touch with our joys, with our sorrows. Anybody have something that they'd like to tell us? Hold it like this.
I would just like to wish happy birthday to our friend Kate Madsen, because today is her birthday.
I was waiting for someone to say that, and it didn't have to be Kate. How about a little song? Yes. No song. Okay. Hey. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kate. Happy birthday to you. We like doing that, you know. There was somebody else.
Virginia Nixon just wanted to share the joy of being back here. I'm starting my 7th week after the knee surgery, and things are healing according to schedule. So it aches all the time, but you can't have something good without paying a price. So.
Well, I understand sometimes it gets better, so we hope that will happen. Okay.
My wife, Chris Copeland, retired on Friday after a very long history. So
there should be a song for that, but there is applause.
So I think that most of you know that Dick and Esther Conway had to move to Vancouver, Washington in January because of Dick's health. They moved into an independent and assisted care facility. Dick has suffered several falls, pretty serious, and is now in care support, so we might think a kind word for him and Esther.
Looking around. Okay. Yes, Oma.
So Don and I just got back,
From Victoria, where we spent 5 days at the Baroque Music Festival. We had a wonderful time, and we just got off the ferry a couple of hours ago. It's nice to be here.
We're glad you rushed back for us.
And adding to the cheery news, I had reported that Barb Dyer had been, hospitalized right before Christmas and so on and so forth. Anyway, she's really doing well at home, and I'm delighted to see her progressing. She's still not driving yet, but she's a force to be reckoned with.
Well, thank you very much. So just a moment to pause and think about what's happening. Many of us thought, well, maybe if we just made a sign or two and stood on a street corner, maybe that helps, because we hear about that going on all over the country. It gave us some hope. And I don't know where the hope lies right now. But what I do know is that the impact of what's happened in Iran is significant. It feels significant more than anything else so far to me. We know we want to look after each other's needs, and you're very good at checking in on people, giving people rides, helping them with whatever they're dealing with. I think it's most important at this point to pay attention to our mental health and the people we live with, maybe. The people that we come across every day, we don't know ever what's going on with them. But people are going to be a little ragged around the edges, I think. I know I feel that way. Maybe have to give a little slack to people, open up an opportunity to talk about it one-on-one. We need to look after ourselves if we're going to get through this. Would you say so? Thank you.
We recognize that not everyone has the voice with which to speak the depth of their pain or the height of their celebration. We make space in our hearts for all of these joys and sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken. So now, as we listen to our Salish singers sing Amazing Grace, our ushers will come among us to take up the offertory. And just a reminder, these funds go to Olympic Angels, from whom we've heard at the beginning. And Tasha will definitely stay afterwards to answer any further questions that you have.
This is called a Unitarian musical fire drill.
Thank you, Salish singers. That was wonderful. That was amazing. And what's really funny, it's one of my favorite hymns. And what's great in the Unitarian, I'm just going to keep twisting these knobs the whole time. What's beautiful in the hymnal for the UUs, on Amazing Grace, thank you for singing the song for the word wretch. It's really a key one. But in the Unitarian hymnal, there was a little asterisk on wretch. And the choir can choose to sing soul if they wish. I think wretch is better. Also, I would just like to say that one little reframe I've done with the sound of the blinds is distant thunder from the mountain. So when you hear the little, just imagine distant thunder coming in from the mountain. And finally, the reading this morning is very, very short. It's coming on baseball season. My favorite baseball player of all time is a person named Roberto Clemente, who was a huge humanitarian and actually died in a plane wreck bringing supplies to earthquake victims. And I thought it was an appropriate reading today, especially with Olympic angels in the congregation. These are Roberto Clemente's words. Anytime you have an opportunity to make a difference in the world, and you don't, then you are wasting your time on earth.
Pat's asked me to read a little introduction to this song that he's going to sing. In 2004, an American soldier named Nicholas Berg was captured by al-Qaeda while serving in Iraq. Al-Zarqawi, an al-Qaeda leader, ordered that Nicholas Berg be beheaded. The videotape of the execution was shown on television. When CNN interviewed his father, Michael Berg, Mr. Berg refused to ask for revenge or so-called justice against the people who killed his son. Someone fired a rifle at him, apparently believing that he wasn't being properly vindictive and patriotic. In 2006, al-Zarqawi was killed by U.S. forces. Again, CNN interviewed Michael Berg, and he said, "My reaction is that I'm sorry whenever any human being dies. Zarqawi has a family who are reacting just as my family reacted when Nick was killed." He went on to express his concern that killing of Zarqawi would only incite another wave of revenge and violence. When the interviewer expressed surprise that he wasn't glad that Zarqawi was dead, Mr. Berg said, "How can a human being be glad that another is dead?" In response to this story, Peter Katz wrote this song entitled Forgiveness.
You asked me to explain it. There's everything and nothing to say. Some things that happen, and once they do, they never go away. They tell me that this life is eye for eye. Man, you know I think it's all a lie. And I will not stoke the fire of this fight when I know it isn't right. So I think I'm gonna have to try forgiveness, because you know it's all that I've got left. My boy did not deserve this, but neither do the rest. I think I'm gonna have to try forgiveness. You can call me a coward, call me anything you choose. Once you could have hurt me, now I've got nothing left to lose. Go on, spite me, 'cause I will not curse his name. tell me, though I'm broken, I am to blame. Well, go on, but I won't participate in spreading all this hate. I guess I'm gonna have to try forgiveness, because you know it's all that I've got left. My boy did not deserve this, but neither did the rest. Think I'm gonna have to try forgiveness. Well, they shot at me for speaking out against this tired war. How can you lose one life and not demand one more? What good will it do us in the end? There's nothing that could justify revenge. And I stand now here before you, living out the hardest test, and I still say the only answer is forgiveness. 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 Well, you know we've got to try forgiveness, because you know it's all that we've got left. Our boys and girls are watching, and they put us to the test. Come, let us show them forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Let's all take a breath. Thank you, Pat. That is can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Right on. Good. Thank you very much for that song. That's perhaps the best lead-in to a sermon that I have ever had. So thank you for that. Wow. So for the past 2,000 years, billions of Christians have talked about and meditated on and prayed for forgiveness, about how Jesus Christ died on a cross for the world's sins, was executed for our sins, and through a belief in him we can find eternal forgiveness for those sins. Capital F, forgiveness. For sins which are rooted in capital O, original sin. Well, since my brain started to gel as a teenager, I've always been a little shaky on this point. And I could never quite track how belief in a human being executed by the state 2,000 years ago could possibly lead to salvation, to the forgiveness of my sins. And more to the point, did I need to be forgiven for hiding a Playboy magazine under the floorboards of my closet? And did forgiveness require me to get rid of the Playboy? Now, regardless of my teenage struggles, the promise of forgiveness, deep, radical forgiveness, is a core belief in the Christian religion. And I can understand that. I intuitively understand without a lot of theological jujitsu or leaps of faith. Deep, radical forgiveness, like we just heard about, it's the ultimate cleansing. It is a purification. It is preparation to be present with the divine. And like many great beliefs, they can be distilled down to fit on a bumper sticker, and here is one I have seen on many cars, and my guess is you have too. Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven. Now the phrase, Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven, is an echo of a much earlier quote from Alexander Pope, to err is human, to forgive divine. and we all readily admit to human error. We regularly make mistakes, small, big, sometimes deeply painful mistakes. And in the course of our erring, of our mistaking, we frequently injure and harm people and things, friends and family, co-workers and congregants and complete strangers. We crash cars, we chip the heirloom china, we muddy the carpet, we insult values, we hurt feelings. And what do we do with and about those injuries and harms, both large and small, and perhaps even micro? Well, we can hold a grudge, and we can tend to our insults and our harms as if they were a wounded pit bull chained to the playground or chained to the swing set in the muddy yard. Or we can try to forgive. We can try to forget. Now, one incident that speaks to the issue happened when I was coming home from Seattle, from downtown Seattle, after a long physical day of moving furniture out of a fourth-floor office building. I was dressed in grubby work clothes. I was riding shotgun in an old pickup truck. We pulled into the ferry line in Seattle on our way to Bainbridge. And since we had some time, I climbed out of the truck to better admire the afternoon and the skyline of the city. And the guy who was parked right next to the truck jumped out of the car and said, "Hey, you just hit my car." I did. I was completely oblivious. Now, the car that I supposedly hit was an expensive model, and the guy was dressed in a tailored suit and wearing fashionable sunglasses. I looked to where the door would have hit the car, and there was a very small surface blemish. I licked my thumb, rubbed the mark off. There you go. Sorry about that. The guy leaned back to inspect. There's a dent. I looked, and from my vantage point, I couldn't see anything. And then I looked from another angle, and I did glimpse, with the aid of sunlight and shadow, a minute ding, about the size of a pore on a grapefruit rind. Now, I submit for your consideration the important difference between dent and ding. And note also the difference between tailored suit and grubby clothes, expensive model, pickup truck. And there I was, standing in the afternoon sun after a long day of work, dealing with this. One person's dent and another person's ding. "What's to be done?" I asked. "Well, I have to get it fixed," he said. Now, at this point, body shops and real money, my real money, started to come into mind's eye. And I did not want to get entangled into paying for some rich dude to get his expensive car fixed for nothing greater than a microscopic blip, for something that could literally only be seen when you pointed to it under close inspection at an angle in perfect light. So I just nodded. I gave him the courtesy of a sympathetic expression, and I climbed back into my truck. And thankfully, he got back into his car, and we left it at that. We each drove onto the ferry, and we successfully avoided each other. He stewing over being hit and harmed, and I stewing over being confronted over stupid shit. And what I realized afterwards is that this is one of the countless millions of situations daily that fall into, listen to that thunder, it's great, that fall into the forget bucket of the phrase forgive and forget. Isn't forget about it. No big deal. We have got better things to worry about. Now, while this incident is almost mind-numbing in how insignificantly small it is, it illustrates a point that even dinky dings among strangers can be loaded and energized by invisible forces with class and expectations, rules, and protocols that don't align. The willingness to say, oops, sorry, to roll with the punches or not. Now, another quick example. Years ago, my friend and I were driving in Port Townsend. We came to a stop at a corner and we got bumped from behind at about 10 miles an hour by a pickup truck. My friend, she blurted out the F word, which was neither forgive nor forget. She checked to see whether her kids were okay, and then jumped out of the car to meet face to face with a young man and his date. They were on their way to a church function. He was incredibly embarrassed and apologetic. And after everyone was confirmed to be physically okay, we assessed the damage, which was a 1-inch by 2-inch dent in my friend's bumper. His bumper also sustained some damage. He quickly offered $100 for her troubles. She refused the money. That's why they're called bumpers, she said. I loved that. They did not exchange insurance cards. They shook hands, said goodbye, wished each other well, and off to a good evening. The relief on that young man's face, palpable and delicious. And the main characters in this little vignette, bumpers. We should all sing praises to the bumpers of the world. And I ask aloud, how well do you use your bumpers? The bumper on your car, the bumper on your emotions, the bumper on your interactions, and the bumper on your soul. As you jostle around in the rough and tumble world, I wish you all good, spring-loaded, thick, rubbery, effective bumpers. And may there be ample room on those bumpers for very poignant and to-the-point stickers that remind us to err as human, to forgive divine. And I've actually seen that bumper sticker put on upside down, which is very funny. Now, as for the divine forgiveness appears in every major religion, and some of the oldest accounts of forgiveness can be found in the Hebrew, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Confucian, and Hindu texts. One of the most radical notions of forgiveness is our own universalist tradition. Divine love means universal salvation, which implies radical forgiveness. Divine love and radical forgiveness radiating into every nook and cranny in the universe, including your heart, my heart, and the heart of everyone who has ever lived. And when thinking about forgiveness, especially radical forgiveness for transgressions beyond the pale, let's consider Nelson Mandela. Mandela, who spent more than a quarter of his long life as a political prisoner, who was punished by the state in a brutal decades-long fight over systematized racism called apartheid. Once freed from prison, Mandela was elected president of South Africa. He inherited a country that was deeply traumatized, wounded and divided, and in need of transformational healing. And Mandela's greatest offering to South Africa, and frankly to our modern and our cynical political world, was to practice radical forgiveness. And after Mandela died, an article in the Toronto Globe and Mail said it well, quote, "Mandela will be remembered for one quality above all others, his capacity to forgive, and to turn that forgiveness into visible reconciliation. He had still the Globe and Mail, he had a phenomenal, almost unbelievable ability to rise above bitterness and rancor, and clearly he made a conscious decision that this was the best route for the liberation of black Africans, close quote. And while the language of forgiveness is traditionally a purview of religion and in very rare instances politics, it has also become the subject of active study within the academic and psychological communities, with two prime examples being the Forgiveness Project at Stanford University and the International Forgiveness Institute. Now, these secular organizations recognize that forgiveness is something that, while divine, also needs to be practiced and mastered by the error-prone mortals trying to live together on planet Earth. This Earth that is so burdened with so much human ego and error, with so much pain and suffering and evil, this Earth that is aching to be healed, this world and everyone on it in need of giving and receiving forgiveness. And it makes perfect sense to ask at this point, so what is forgiveness? Glad you asked. Dr. Fred Luskin, a researcher at Stanford University, said in an interview, quote, "The dictionary definition of says forgiveness is giving up any thought of revenge or harm, even when it might be justified." And he continues, "My own definition of forgiveness is that it's learning to make peace when you didn't get something that you wanted in life." Close quote. Now, what I love about those definitions is the phrase, make peace. Luskin, in another interview, said, quote, I refer to forgiveness as an assertive creation of peace in the present. So peace is at the heart of forgiveness. And peace, note, doesn't just rise. There is an assertion and an assertive creation of peace. It is a creative act. And there's the rub. Forgiveness takes creativity and effort. And we get there by practicing. And like many things in life that take effort, forgiveness, the act of forgiving, it is worth the effort. Because scientific and psychological studies show that those who practice forgiveness score higher on just about every measure of psychological well-being. People who forgive generally have more and better relationships with others. They feel happier and are more hopeful. And so how do we go about forgiving? The Forgiveness Project at Stanford, they've developed a 9-step process that I will briefly overview. 1, know exactly how you feel about what happened and be able to articulate what about the situation is not okay. Then, tell a trusted couple of people about your experience. 2, make a commitment to yourself to do what you have to do to feel better. Forgiveness is for you and not for anyone else. 3, forgiveness does not necessarily mean reconciliation with the person who hurt you or condoning their actions. 4, get the right perspective on what is happening. Recognize that your primary distress is coming from the hurt feelings, the thoughts, and the physical upset that you're suffering now, not what offended you or hurt you 2 minutes or 10 years ago. Forgiveness helps to heal those hurt feelings. 5, at the moment you feel upset, practice a simple stress management technique to soothe your body's fight or flight response. 6, give up expecting things from other people or your life that they do not choose to give you. Remind yourself that you can hope for health, love, peace, and prosperity, and work hard to get them. 7, put your energy into looking for another way to get your positive goals met than through the experience that has hurt you. Instead of mentally replaying the hurt, seek out new ways to get what you want. 8. Remember that a life well lived is your best revenge. Instead of focusing on your wounded feelings, learn to look for the love, the beauty, and kindness around you. Forgiveness is about personal power. And finally, number 9, amend your grievance story to remind you of the heroic choice to forgive. Now, I love the guidance to amend your grievance story. Now, they don't suggest editing your story. They say very specifically, amend your story. And for those who have ever come into contact with a 12-step program, you will recall that step number 9 talks about making amends. And while I don't have confirmation that this is the case, my guess is that it is no coincidence that the 9th step of this forgiveness process and the 9th step of the recovery process both highlight the word amend. And we've all got grievance stories, individual and collective grievance stories. And the next time that you think and feel your way through one of your whole close-in grievance stories, ask yourself where you might begin the practice of actively forgiving. And so we covered a lot of ground today, and we barely scratched the surface. You are very encouraged to think about and explore the topics of forgiving and forgetting, of amending your grievance story, of reflecting on our universalist traditions and the radical notion of divine love and forgiveness, and in considering this quote from Dr. Fred Luskin. Quote, "The only life you could ever be happy in is the one you actually have." And so as we move toward the vernal equinox, it's quite likely that the details of our time together this afternoon, they're probably going to get a little murky. So to provide a little bit of stickiness, let's conclude with an image. So imagine gathering for a spring festival, and everyone at this festival is radiating their divinity. It's as if everyone has taken a hot tub or a sauna. They've brushed their teeth, they've combed their hair, they've dressed to present them very best self to the world. You all stand in line at the festival's most glorious and popular attraction. It is the world's largest bumper car ride. You strap into the little car and you smile when you see those big rubber bumpers around the entire perimeter. You remember, I heard a sermon once that referred to bumpers. And when you look up, you see that everyone that you have ever harmed and everyone that has ever harmed you is safely strapped into every other car. And they are shining with their divinity. The carny flips the big red switch and the bumper cars begin to move. You press down on the go pedal. You swerve, you collide, cars crash and careen into each other. They bounce off each other with that satisfying boing. Laughter, squealing mix with the ride's upbeat music, and those sounds rise skyward. Everyone that you have ever harmed and everyone who has ever harmed you is together on this ride, smiling and steering, squealing and shining. And the name of this divine bumper car ride is, you guessed it, forgive and forget. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning, the lyrics are on the back of your order of service. The closing hymn is called This Old World.
As we finish up these last 3 weeks of winter, I bring to mind how the Catholics used to end their Sunday Mass with the Latin words, ite missa est, which effectively means you were sent to put into practice in your daily lives what you have heard and done today. And if we could all say our closing words together, we extinguish this flame, but not the loving joy of being freely together. We carry that joy until we meet again. So, please join us for refreshments provided by Joni Murphy and Paul Hinton. And are you going to? Yeah. And Joseph is going to lead a discussion back in the library in about 15 minutes.
And if you don't come, I forgive you.
Also, Tasha will be around to answer any of your questions about Olympic Angels. So thank you.